Today, we are going to solve quadratic equation by factoring, wherein this is only at easy level. So we're going to solve quadratic equation in the form of ax squared plus bx is equal to 0. So you notice that the constant term c is missing. So there are several steps, the simple steps that we need to follow in solving this type of quadratic equation. So there are three. So first one is to factor out the greatest common factor, no? Wherein you have learned that during your grade 8. And the second one, we have equate each factor by 0. So when we say equate each factor by 0, now we just simply put equal 0 for each factor. Then last but not the least, the third one, we have solve for the unknown. So I have here three samples. Example 1, x squared plus 10x equals 0. Example 2, we have x squared equals negative 5x. Example 3, we have 10x squared is equal to negative 14x. So let's start. So considering example number 1, so since it is already in the form of ax squared plus bx equals 0. Now we can now proceed with step number 1. Okay, so now what is common between this x squared and then x? So actually, no, the common term, no, the common factor between x squared and 10x is x. So we just simply factor it out now by dividing each term by x. So when we divide x squared by x, what will happen? So you will get x, right? Then when you divide 10x by x, you will also get plus 10. So equals 0. So you notice there are two factors. One is x and the other one is x plus 10. So we can now proceed by step 2. So sabi ni step 2, equate each factor by 0. So pag sinabing equate each factor by 0, we just simply put equal 0. So how many factors do we have? Two factors. One is x and the other one is x plus 10. So we just simply put equal 0, no, for step 2. Okay, for each factor. Then step 3, solve for the unknown for each factor, no, for each equation rather. Okay, so you will notice that on the left side, x equals 0 is already solved. No, it is already done. So that's why we are now going to solve only x plus 10 equals 0. So to solve that, we transpose 10 to the other side, we get x equals negative 10. Okay, as simple as that. What about step 2? Example number 2 rather. So you will notice in example number 2, it is not yet in the form of ax squared plus bx plus 0. Hindi pa naka-equal sa 0. So para ma-solve, since there is a quadratic term and a linear term, no, we have to solve, we have to transpose the negative 5x to the other side. So you will get, what you will get there is that you will get x squared plus 5x equals 0. So this is now the new form of our quadratic equation. Okay, so we can now proceed with these steps. So to solve that, we now get, we now factor out the common. So what's common between x squared and 5x? That is x. Okay, so dividing each term by x, so you will get x squared divided by x, we have x, and 5x divided by x, we have 5 equals 0. So step 2, what is step 2? Equate each factor by 0. What are the factors? We have x and x plus 5. Equate it to 0. So equate it to 0. Equate it to 0. Okay. So again, now the other side, x equals 0 is already done. Now it's already solved. Now we only solve x plus 5 equals 0 by transposing 5 to the other side. We get x equals negative 5. And last but not the least, Now we have 10x squared equals negative 4x. Okay? So you notice again that it is not yet equal to 0. No? Every time we solve this type of equation wherein there is only a quadratic, no, quadratic and linear term, no, we always try to equate it to 0. Okay? So with this, no, 10x squared equals negative 4x will become 10x squared plus 14x equals 0. No? Kasi nilipat natin si negative 14x. So with that, we can now get the common factor, the greatest common factor. Now, what is the greatest common factor between 10x squared and 14x? So we have, okay, we have 2x. Okay, so because the common between 10 and 14 is 2, and the common between x squared and x is x. That's why we factor it out. So 10x squared divided by 2x, you get 5x. Then 14x divided by 2x, you get 7 equals 0. Okay, so what are the factors again? So we have 2x and 5x plus 7. According to step number 2, we have to equate it to 0, each factor. Okay, so therefore, no, is this already done? 2x equals 0? Okay, so it's not yet done. So we're going to simplify it by dividing both sides by 2. Then you will get x equals 0 still. However, the other side now will become 5x equals negative 7 divided by 5 by 5. Therefore, x equals negative 7 over 5. As simple as that. Still, we have two values, no? Or two roots of x, of quadratic equation. Okay? So there are always two roots. Now, you will observe that every time we solve this type of equation, there is always a factor of x, or there is always a root of x which is equal to 0. So if constant is missing, the only linear and quadratic term na are given, then its root, its root, one of its roots will be equal to 0.